So if you don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Dave Boynton. I'm a chiropractor. I specialize in functional medicine. And Dr. Luke Howell is a chiropractor as well. We're talking about a functional medicine and chiropractic approach to sleep. So sleep is something that's very important. Some people say that you can catch up on sleep. I do not think that is true. You cannot catch up on sleep. Once it's gone, because you can't redo the trauma that you caused your body from the day before. So we're going to talk about why sleep is important, how not only chiropractic care can help, but functional medicine can help, and I'm going to give you guys a lot of lifestyle strategies of things you can do that don't cost anything, that can really improve your sleep quality, which will notably help you live a longer, healthier life. So Dr. Luke's going to start off with the chiropractic approach to sleep. So these are things you're going to learn today. So if you don't know us on Facebook or on YouTube, go to our Facebook page and like us, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe so you can get all the videos we're going to share. So we're going to kind of review some physiology and the mechanisms of sleep. What happens if you don't get enough sleep? How does chiropractic care and spinal adjustments improve your sleep? Root causes of sleeping problems. The functional medicine approach to optimizing your sleep. Because you want to have optimal sleep. You don't want to just have just barely sleep. You want to have ideal sleep, because then your brain's going to heal ideally. What are clinical manifestations of people who don't sleep well? And then what can you do about it? We're going to give some common sense strategies, some functional medicine testing to figure out what the root cause of some sleep problems are, and a special thanks to everyone who showed up tonight. So, Dr. Luke, go ahead and take over for me.
Good afternoon. All right, so I'll make it pretty simple. Have you ever been in pain and try to go to sleep? You have that like tossing, turning, have to get in weird positions, try to find the right, perfect, exact positions, right? So obviously if you're in pain, you're gonna feel it the worst at night. You're not moving around, you're not distracted. So obviously chiropractic wise, helping you move, feel better can really help on the basic level of get you out of pain, get you feeling better so you can actually be able to sleep. So that's kind of the low hanging fruit, the easiest way chiropractic can help in the mere pain aspect. If you're having trouble sleeping because of pain or issues like that, chiropractic help, very easy, kind of straightforward, help with that. Second thing is a little more complicated, looking more at the parasympathetic nervous system. So we have two kind of sides of your autonomic nervous system. One is your fight flight, and one knows you run into a bear, you get scared, you get amped up, right? The opposite of that is the parasympathetic. It's called the rest and digest. So obviously in the name rest, so the more you sleep, the more you're gonna be in that parasympathetic state. So chiropractic wise, there are certain adjustments called logo basic that we can do that works on that sacrotuberous ligament, which is that green ligament you see over there, and to help relax and really work that sacrum area, and it kind of goes up the spine to kind of calm down, deregulate you from all the stress that we get through work, the stress we get at home, all the different kind of stressors we put in our life. Our society that's constant, like, have to be entertained, have to kind of do something, always have to be thinking and moving. We expect to do that for 12, 16 hours and be able to be like, all right, I'm going to bed, shut it all off and sleep for 8 hours. Usually that doesn't work that well. And so working on stuff with parasympathetic, kind of working with throughout the day, getting adjusted in particular ways can sometimes help calm that body down, be able to, get you to relax and be able to sleep. So that's kind of the second way chiropractic can help. The third way is through breathing. So breathing is obviously huge all the time, especially in sleep. A lot of sleep issues can come out of breathing, and we'll kind of mention that more as we go. Rib cages obviously have a lot of ribs, 12 on each side. They can get out of place. If you ever have slept or had a rib issue, you're not going to sleep because you're going to, you can't lay on your back, you can't lay on your side. You can't really find a comfortable position. So being able to get the ribs back in place, get the mid back moving, being able to get those deep breaths in so you can sleep and not think about it. Because if you're going throughout your day, you're breathing every time it hurts, you can kind of get through the day. But if you're trying to fall asleep and every breath you get, you have pain, obviously you're not going to be able to sleep. And so the fact of, I know Dr. Boynton will go a little more into breathing and some of that stuff as well, but the idea of being able to adjust, get the ribs, mid-back moving better, can help you breathe, can obviously help you sleep as well. And the last aspect, kind of piggybacking on the breathing as we get into more, with sleep apnea, there's many different causes of that. And one of those things is if you're, having sinus issues, that obviously is going to clog up your airways, not going to let you be able to breathe as well. And so we do a lot of sinus drainage, kind of working on different pressure points, kind of trying to drain the system as well. So that can definitely help. And then obviously TMJ issues, having jaw pain as well, can affect your breathing at night, especially sleeping and going into that. If you need a dentist to look at sleep apnea, I can talk to you about my life. But, so sleep apnea, obviously we don't do as much with that. But in the mindset of, if you think about sleep apnea and how that can affect, those are two things that, not saying if you have sleep apnea, but if you're having some, a cold and you're having a lot of sinus pressure, that's going to affect it, like sleep apnea or jaw pain. So, any questions with any of that? All right.
So it's clearly important. The first thing we talk about with sleeping problems is gonads and ovaries, right? Because that's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about sleeping problems. Clearly. So, did you know that if a man sleeps less than 6 hours a night, his gonads will reduce 50% in size? And women who sleep less than 6 hours a night, their ovaries reduce 50% in size, which means you can't make sex hormones. And that's a problem if you're an adult, because those are important for your brain function. So it's very important that you sleep for more than just your sleep. So what are other reasons why Dr. Luke covered a lot of these? So pain, obviously circulation. So if you don't have ideal circulation to your body and your brain, you're going to sleep poorly. Cervical subluxations. So in your neck, the nerves that control your phrenic nerve control your diaphragm. So if your neck is misaligned, your diaphragm cannot work properly, which means you can't pull air down as much, which can be reasons for sleep apnea and sleeping problems. So instability in your cervical spine. So some people have connective tissue disorders, and they're hypermobile. They're kind of Gumby. So circadian rhythm disruption, structural sleep apnea, and insomnia caused by cervical instability. So these are some physical and structural things. So obviously an abnormal TMJ function, obesity, just more physical weight on your neck, but skinny people have sleep apnea too. Cervical instability, the joints in your neck move too freely, which impacts your nervous system and can impact your brain stem, which impacts your ability to breathe properly. And enlarged tonsils and just physically a smaller airway. So here's some physiological things that have to do with sleep. So these are all the regions of your brain that control sleep. So the first thing you have to do is close your eyes. So if there's light in the room, your body will not make melatonin. So your room needs to be dark. And melatonin only works when you take it when the room is dark. So you can take melatonin right now and you will not get tired. Melatonin is also a powerful antioxidant. So we give our patients high doses of melatonin during the day. And guess what? They don't get tired. It helps to reduce oxidative stress in their body. So we'll give patients 60 milligram capsules of melatonin at lunchtime to help reduce their oxidative stress in their body, not to help them sleep. So if you do take melatonin, it's important you take it at the right time. Turn off your lights, then take the melatonin. And that's basically just taking a pill to help you sleep, but the goal is not to take any pills to help you sleep. The goal is to help your lifestyle fix that. So once your eyes are no longer sensing light, it sends a signal to the optic nerve, then to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is like the distribution center, or back in the day when you had the phone operators, they would plug in the different phone lines to different breakers in an office building. That's what your hypothalamus does. It receives all the signals from your brainstem and then shuttles those off to different lobes of your brain to tell it what to do and at the appropriate time. Next it goes to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That's fun to say. That's saying, hey, it's time to sleep. Hey, pineal gland, make some melatonin. So your pineal gland makes melatonin only when it's dark, which also helps to down-regulate your cortisol production from adrenal glands. That then sends a signal to your brainstem, and that produces GABA. GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It helps to calm your brain down and your central nervous system so that you can relax and fall asleep. The reticular activating system, or your RAS, that's how your brain knows if you're awake or asleep. That's kind of like your on-off switch, and that helps to set up the cycles of sleep. That then sends a signal to your pons that relaxes your muscles and reduces your heart rate. So all the times what I like to tell my patients is, like, when you're sleeping, you're kind of on life support. Your digestion barely works, your heart barely beats, you don't breathe as much as you would during the day. Everything is just at a reduced state. Why? So your body can recover. So I like, in my mind, your body says, okay, what did you do to me today that was good? and what did you see was bad, and did you do enough good to offset the bad? And then your body uses the good to fix all the bad things. So what are the bad things that we do? Drink too much alcohol, exercise too intensely, eat an inflammatory diet, have stress that we don't control appropriately. So all those things just weigh on your body all the time. So if you're eating a nutrient insufficient diet, you're not going to have ability to sleep well. If you drink too much alcohol, you're not going to be able to sleep well. If you don't sleep well, you don't sleep well, which then causes other problems down the road. So all these things are on a feedback loop, and the PONS helps to regulate that. Your cerebellum then takes over, and that's what causes your body to dream. And it's also your balance center. So people that have poor balance don't dream because they have a cerebellum problem. So how do you know if you have a balance problem? So we can do Romberg test. So you put your feet together and close your eyes, and you should be able to stand perfectly straight. And still, you might wobble a little bit. But if you're doing one of these numbers, you're going to have problems sleeping because your brain is inflamed, particularly your cerebellum. Your amygdala is in the back of the brain. That's where you express your emotions. That's also a very important sleep regulation system. So think of your frontal lobe as like the parent, and your amygdala is like the 11-year-old hyperactive, annoying child. And the frontal lobe tells the annoying boy to shut up. So when you don't sleep, the boy yells at the parents and doesn't do what they tell them to do. So then the amygdala starts to win, and now emotions drive your bus. And now you're in a stressful cycle that you can't get out of. So we have to upregulate frontal lobe function, and we'll talk about that later, and downregulate your amygdala to calm your body down so you can sleep. So people that have a problem with their amygdala, their emotions drive the bus, and they have anxiety at night, which causes them to be in fight or flight when they're sleeping. So you can actually have anxiety attacks in the middle of the night when you're sleeping, believe it or not. It's not something that only happens during the day. It can happen in the middle of the night. And we're talking about why and how to fix that. So then the amygdala goes to the hippocampus. That's where your body stores your memories. So when you sleep, your body basically recalls your day and pulls all the important memories, and that sickness sends it back to the hippocampus in your brain. And then your frontal lobe takes over, and that's when you start to dream better. So if you don't sleep, you'll actually have poor short-term memory. You'll have poor working memory. So sleeping is very important to really everything that has to do with brain function. There are cycles of sleep, and we're going to talk about that briefly. I'm sure you're all aware of that. So you have your phase 1, your heart rate reduces, your respiration reduces, and you're in the alpha waves. This is only about 2 or 3 minutes, so that's the very shortest frame of sleep. You now go to phase 2, which is non-REM sleep. That's when your respiration slows even more, your body temperature drops, you're in theta, and the sleep spindles and the K complexes start to go through your body, and they start to wash your brain. It uses that by using the glymphatic system. Our body uses the lymphatic system to detox our fire, right? That's kind of our sewer system. Well, our brain doesn't have that. It uses the glymphatic system because we have glial cells in our brain. So when you sleep, your brain washes itself, quote unquote. What does it wash itself of? Well, what did you do to me today? Did you eat inflammatory foods? Were you stressed out? Are you inflamed? Did you drink too much alcohol? Because your brain has to get rid of all those things first. And after it does that, then it starts work on the tau amyloid plaquing. And we know that's due to chronic inflammation, and that's one of the biggest drivers of dementia and Alzheimer's and cognitive decline as you get older. The first symptom of cognitive decline is your lack of ability to smell. Unless you had COVID, and you still can't smell like me, and that sucks. But I can still smell something that's coming back, I hope. So if you can't smell, that happens 20 years before the first sign of dementia. So this is probably none of you, but think about your parents and can they smell? If they can't smell, they're already losing cognitive function before they even aware of it. So if that's true, it's very important that they sleep. And usually, as you get older, your circadian rhythm actually changes. As you get older, you tend to sleep less, which is interesting. You would think you would sleep more as you get older. You sleep less at night and more during the day, which is common as you age because your brain degenerates in certain lobes of your brain. Next, you go to REM sleep. That's the third sleep. So REM is rapid eye movement. This is non-REM sleep. That's the deepest. That's when your body's completely relaxed. That's when your tight gap junctions, and all your muscles, they start to heal. They use the amino acids and proteins to actually heal your body. And then finally, the last step is the REM phase. That's when your eyes are twitching back and forth. If you've ever seen somebody doing that, they're in that deep restorative sleep. You're in the delta waves, and your brain activity actually increases. So this is when people have anxiety attacks. So if you're having a bad dream, you can actually have an anxiety attack and you're having a bad dream. And your heart rate and your respiration will also increase. You normally have 4 to 5 cycles of sleep throughout the night, and they last about 90 minutes each cycle. So this is what your brain waves look like, if you were wondering. So when you're awake, that's what your brain looks like. That's phase 1 is in alpha, stage 2 is in theta, stage 3 is in delta and REM. So those are different types of brain waves that we can look at through an EKG. Another thing that impacts your sleep is your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve is called the wandering nerve. It comes out of the jugular foramen out of the back of your skull, runs in front of your SCM, which is this muscle right here, down here, behind your sternum, and into all your organ systems. So why is that important? Well, in order to your vagus nerve is controlled by your parasympathetic nervous system. So if you have a vagus nerve problem, that's going to impact your sleep and your digestion. So some people can't get better because they are in sympathetic stress or they've damaged somehow the vagus nerve. So even going back to the chiropractic thing, how we can impact your sleep, if these muscles are super tight, your clavicles are out of place, you have rib heads behind your sternum out of place, that can impact your ability to sleep and digestion, even controls your heart rate and lots of things. So vagus nerve is important. So one thing we do is we try to help people stimulate their vagus nerve by humming, singing, gargling, cold plunges. If you can't sleep, get cold. Get cold frequently. If you take a cold shower in the morning, you will sleep better at night. How cold? As cold as you can tolerate. Some people can only tolerate, let's say a shower is 100 degrees, some people can only tolerate 85. Okay, then it's 85. Some people can tolerate 40, then it's 40, it doesn't matter. It's whatever is cold to you, and slowly work yourself down to actually get colder, because this will help stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system. The more you can stimulate parasympathetic, because you can't be in parasympathetic and sympathetic at the same time. You're in one or the other. You can't be relaxing and stressed out at the same time. You're doing one or the other. Most people are stuck in a chronic state of fight or flight because of everything sucks. I mean, the world's not in a good place right now. Jesus is probably coming back soon. All the bad things. So, and when you focus on that, it really impacts people's health quite a bit. So the more we can focus on things like praying, singing. How do monks get in that meditative state? They hum really low. Why do they hum really low? Because it makes your uvula move the most. When your uvula moves the most, it stimulates parasympathetic to help your body relax. That's why they hum. Gag yourself with your toothbrush. Not to throw up unless you have a horrible gag reflex. Don't do that, because throwing up is horrible. But if you can tolerate hitting your punching bag, your uvula in the back of your throat, that will help to stimulate parasympathetic. Singing, praying, exercising, all these things help to stimulate parasympathetic. So if you can start your day off in parasympathetic and end your night with parasympathetic, you're going to have a better sleep outcome. Sleep apnea is also a problem. There's a couple different points of view on sleep apnea. I think they're both right. And who goes to sleep apnea doctors? People that have sleeping problems. So does everyone need to sleep? Does everyone need to have a CPAP machine? Maybe. Or is it just the people that they send there have a higher percentage of needing it? So everybody I don't know of anybody who's gone to a sleep doctor who's not needed a sleep apnea machine. Is it because we only refer people to them that have a problem? So if I don't have a sleeping problem and I go to a sleep apnea doctor, do I still need a CPAP machine? Because I'm not in the population that needs one. So I don't know. But are they important? Absolutely. Because if your brain doesn't have oxygen, it becomes inflamed. And if your brain's inflamed, it's hard to sleep. Why? Because inflammation impacts your frontal lobe the most. When your frontal lobe is inflamed, the amygdala yells louder than the frontal lobe can turn it down. Now you're in sympathetic stress. Now your cortisol's high. And when does your cortisol hit typically? Midnight, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So people wake up on those cycles, their cortisol is high. Why? Because that's the states of the REM cycles. And when we measure people's cortisol, in the morning, every 3 to 4 hours is when your cortisol changes. So Weston Price was a dentist back in the early 1900s, and what he did is he went to a lot of primitive cultures, and he did studies on their bodies, their heads and their skulls, because he was a dentist. He looked at their teeth. If you look at pictures in National Geographic of like tribes in Amazon, their faces are very broad and wide. All of their teeth fit in their mouth, and their wisdom teeth grow in. If you look at Europeans and Americans, their faces are narrower and narrower and narrower. When I grew up, not everybody needed braces. Now everybody needs braces because we have narrower faces, and there's a couple different arguments on why that's true. It's because we don't chew hard food. Because we cook everything, we make everything soft and squishy, and kids like nothing but soft, easy to eat food. So the narrower your face is, your muscles get weak, so you don't have a broad, wide face. Everyone should not need orthodontia. But in our culture they do. In other parts of the world, nobody needs orthodontia because they have wider, and all their teeth fit in their mouth. They also have bigger skulls than we do because they have to hold the muscle structure by developing bigger skulls. And because we have narrow faces, we have weaker facial muscles, we have atrophy and weakening of our muscles in our palate, so our palates collapse, and now we have sleep apnea. Because all of this is weak on us. We don't eat hard, we don't eat enough hard things because they just grab vegetables and eat them. They might not even cook the meat as much as what we do here. They don't puree, they don't have the mechanisms to make soft food. So they eat a lot of hard food. And the more you stress the body, the harder the body becomes. There's no osteoporosis in people who live in the Amazon. They get bit by a spider and a snake and die. You know, their life expectancy is not as long as ours, but they all have strong bones. They don't eat sugar, so they have white teeth. They have great digestion. They don't have autoimmune problems. There's no autism. There's no diseases of the modern world because they go out in the jungle and kill things and grow food and eat it. All these conveniences are killing us. And this doctor over here, he wrote a book called Breathe. So he believes very similar things. Based on human evolution, our faces are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and narrower. Because he also agrees that we eat too much soft food. We also mouth breathe instead of breathing through our nose. Mouth breathing weakens these airway muscles. We need to chew our food more. Most people are deficient in fat soluble minerals and trace elements. We eat inflammatory foods. We eat too much food that produces mucus. Our cortisol is high. When your cortisol is high, that inhibits vagus nerve. So when your cortisol is high, it turns off the mechanism that calms you down. And a lot of people have chronic fungal sinus infections. So chronic sinusitis is almost always a fungal infection in your sinuses. How do you know if you have one? If you have a chronic sinus infection, you get antibiotics, right? Antibiotics don't kill fungus. Antibiotics only kill bacteria. So when antibiotics don't work, we can actually measure your marcons. We stick a swab in your nose, swab it, and it tells us if you have a fungal infection. Then we treat you with antifungals, which actually get rid of this so you can breathe through your nose and not through your mouth. All these things. So what are some root causes? So cortisol, we talked about cortisol. So if you're unfamiliar with cortisol, it is a stress hormone, not a sex hormone. Your adrenal glands make pregnenolone, DHEA, and cortisol. Your ovaries and gonads make all of your sex hormones, estrogen, testosterone, follicular stimulating hormones, progesterone, all those things. So when your cortisol is high, the same nutrients that make cortisol also make your sex hormones. So if you're really stressed out, your body stops making nutrients for sex hormones, it makes nutrients to drive cortisol. So if your cortisol is low, your body can make sex hormones. Because if you're stressed out, the last thing you want to do is have sex. You're trying to run away from a dinosaur and you're scared to death all the time. So you don't have time to digest your food or have sex. When you're calm, you may want to have sex and digest your food. So it's a primitive reflex that we've always had, and cortisol is important. But cortisol over a long period of time, for months or weeks or even decades for some people, just devastates your circadian rhythm. It's really hard to get that back. And I'll show you some tests that we can run to kind of know what your cortisol is doing throughout the day, and some different medications and supplements you can take to help reduce that. Some people have goofy travel and work schedules. It's just kind of what it is. Third shift workers actually develop certain diseases because of third shift work. So try your best to not work third shift. If you do, try to work it long term. You get paid more, yeah, but it increases rate of something called all-cause mortality. And what that means, if you work third shift, that means you have a higher rate of dying from anything more so than other people do. Poor sleep habits. Try to stay in a routine as much as you can. We all like routines. Some people are not as routine driven. Kids really are routine driven. Try to get to bed around the same time. Try to wake up around the same time. Even if it's on the weekends, try to do that, because it's helpful for your circadian rhythm and your hormone responses to get that routine sleep. So the disruption of your routine can cause inflammation in your brain. Eating too late at night. Eating a large meal too late at night is bad because that can cause acid reflux. Having a snack before bed is really important. We'll talk about that. Some people have mental health disorders, which impacts their sleep. So I did a talk on mental health disorders before, so if you want more information on that, you can go to our website at Sycamore Chiro and go to the functional medicine tab and look at some mental health stuff. We did a talk on depression, anxiety, ADHD, and some other things. You can talk about that. You can learn more about that. Then some people have sleep-related disorders. That's just what they have. Sometimes there's a genetic piece to it as well. Neurotransmitter imbalance can be common. So if you have very high levels of serotonin, that typically, so think about neurotransmitters is like a symphony. They have to play at the right time and at the right amounts in different parts of your brain simultaneously for it to work right. Some people have genetic predispositions where their body makes too much serotonin. When you make too much serotonin, it turns down your GABA. When your dopamine's high, it turns down your catecholamines. When your epinephrine and norepinephrine are high, that's your fight or flight mechanism, it turns down all the inhibitory neurotransmitters. There's no way to measure serotonin. There's no way to measure your neurotransmitters. You can look at your blood, but what's in your blood is not in your brain. And you can look at it through your urine, but what's in your urine is not in your brain. Those kind of give some clue, but it's not accurate like a B12 or a D3 or a specific quantity in your blood. So some doctors will like to run those tests. We don't really run those at all, just because it's not really efficacious for what we're looking for. Hypoglycemia, I think, is one of the biggest underappreciated things that doctors just dismiss. So do you guys understand what hypoglycemia is? Low blood sugar. Typically think of, you get hangry if you don't eat. Well, if you need to eat every 3 or 4 hours during the day, the same thing is true at night. So if you eat dinner at 6 o'clock, like most people, 6 to 7, and you get hypoglycemic every 4 hours, well, at 10, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, guess what? Your blood sugar's low. Why would your blood sugar's low? Your body produces cortisol because your brain's freaking out because it doesn't have any sugar. And now you have an anxiety attack. And now now you breathe less. Now you have apnea because you're having anxiety. And when you have anxiety, you breathe less. You hold your breath because you're kind of guarded on the inside. So how do you control that? Do you wake up in the middle of the night and eat? No. You eat a small snack before bed. Well, what kind of snack? A Snickers bar? No. Popcorn? No. Alcohol? Absolutely not. Fat, fiber, and protein. So what's an easy source of fat, fiber, and protein? Nuts and seeds, a little healthy beef jerky strip, not the bad beef jerky, but the healthy ones, a hard-boiled egg, an avocado, a piece of chicken, 2 bites of a steak, a third of a protein bar. I don't care what it is. Some people really fine-tune it, and they say, okay, I have to eat X amount of ounces of red meat, or this or that. Some people say, I can eat whatever I want to eat, I just have to have something. And if they do wake up in the middle of the night, they just chug juice real quick, like an ounce or 2 of juice, That fulfills the blood sugar. Rinse your mouth out with water, drink it, you'll fall right back asleep again. If it doesn't work, guess what? It's not blood sugar. One thing that's cool, if you can get a continuous glucose monitor, you actually measure glucose throughout the night. And you can see how low it goes or how high it goes. It's the fluctuations that cause the inflammation in your brain. Our blood sugar should kind of do this, up and down. But the problem is it does it. For some people, it does this. That's typically because of your diet or because of stress. So it's the changes in your blood sugar that really impact frontal lobe. What does the frontal lobe need to function? It needs oxygen. So if you're anemic, you're going to automatically carry less oxygen to your brain. If you have apnea, you're not going to breathe. That means you have less oxygen going to your brain. If you're anxious or in fight or flight, you're going to have less oxygen going to your brain. What else does it need? Sugar. Frontal lobe makes up 2% of our body weight, but it requires 20% of our blood sugar. So it's a sugar hog. So if your blood sugar is dropping down, your frontal lobe cannot work. And what happens when your frontal lobe doesn't work? The 11-year-old ADHD kid wins. And he wants to play and party and be emotional and have anxiety, and I want it now, and I'm gonna throw a temper tantrum, which means you can't sleep. In order to shut up the amygdala, you have to support the frontal lobe with sugar or oxygen or both. That's where the sleep appliances and the CPAP machines come in, is to give you that oxygen that you need. But that's just one piece of it. And if you don't have hypoglycemia and you can fast for days and stuff like that, then blood sugar is not your problem. But if you're hypoglycemic, you have to support your blood sugar before you go to bed. Have to, or your sleep's not going to change. Because now you have to deal with sleep and then turn into cortisol. Caffeine. Caffeine is fine. Too much caffeine is bad. Some people have genetics that they can't clear caffeine appropriately. So if you're sensitive to caffeine, you should maybe drink 1 cup of coffee in the morning and even decaf at like 8. So it takes 12 hours to metabolize caffeine completely. So if you're drinking coffee around like noonish, it's still half of it is still in your body at nighttime. So some people shouldn't drink caffeine at all. And you really shouldn't need caffeine to wake up in the morning. You should just wake up fully energized. So when you can't function without caffeine, that tells you there's an underlying problem in your brain. You should wake up, when my eyes wake up, I'm ready to go. There's no listless, where's my coffee, where are my glasses, I can't function. I'm like, all right, I'm up. My day is, I'm close to 100% within 5 minutes of my day. Other people, take some hours to get going. Oftentimes because their cortisol is low. So they have no ability to get going in the morning because their cortisol is so low. Sometimes it's because it was high all night long and then it tanks. Or they have low cortisol all day long and they have adrenal insufficiency. We'll talk about that later. Your age, and as you age as you age, your circadian rhythm changes. Think about when you were a baby. Well, you can't think about your baby because you don't remember. When you all had kids and they were adult, they slept a lot. They needed to sleep. And then once you're an adult, you sleep less. And as you get older, you revert back to like a baby. You take naps and you get older and you sleep more. Because your brain is inflamed. Their brain is developing, their body's developing. When does it do that? When your kids had growth spurts, what do? They ate a lot and slept a lot. That's how you know they're growing. And their pants got too short. Like, we just bought these for you for school and now they're too short because I'm growing. And as you age, your brain degenerates, which requires more sleep. If you know anybody who's had a traumatic brain injury or concussion, what do? They sleep a lot. Why? So their brain can wash itself. Their brain's trying to recover from that trauma, if it can. Altered circadian rhythm, that's your sleep-wake cycle. That's melatonin, cortisol, that's the rhythm. It's being sedentary. People who have a sedentary lifestyle tend to sleep less. You need to exert yourself. You need to make yourself tired. What does exertion look like? Everybody is different. For some people, a 2-mile-an-hour walk is exertion. Some people, running a 4-minute mile is exertion. Most people are somewhere in between. But try your best to walk at least 20 minutes a day. What's the best exercise? The one that you'll do consistently. And it can be different. It could be walking, running, swimming, elliptical, It could be HIIT training, high intensity interval training. It can be swimming, it can be lifting weights. It could be something different every day, but you have to exercise. Why? Because exercise helps your brain. It increases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's how your brain starts to make new pathways from activity. So the best way to increase your BDNF, which is very important as you age, is exercise and intermittent fasting. Caloric restriction increases BDNF. So if you can't sleep and you don't have hypoglycemia, that's important, and you do not have hypoglycemia, try to intermittent fast. What does intermittent fasting mean? That means you skip a meal, either the first meal or the last meal of the day. So basically it's called caloric restriction because you're reducing calories for the day. So you typically, the best window is fasting for 18 hours and eating for 6. Some people can't do that. Some people, it's a 14-10, some people it's a 12-12. You have to figure that out. If you have hypoglycemia, you'll have less ability to do that, but you can work up to that. As your body becomes more stress resilient, your hypoglycemia will actually get less because your body is more resilient to having less calories as your adrenal glands get stronger and as your brain is deflamed. Alcohol, some people drink or use medical marijuana or something like that, or trazodone or medication. You're not sleeping, your eyes are just closed. You don't actually go through the 4 phases of REM of sleep when you take a narcotic to help you sleep, or you drink alcohol, or you do drugs. It basically just knocks you out. So you're sleeping, it's just not restorative sleep. So try your best to not do that. I want to say there is one medication that actually helps you to actually get through that actually allows you to go through the levels of sleep. I don't know which one it is. One of them does it, and all the rest of them don't. I might find the file by the time I'm done. But most of them just knock you out. So your eyes are closed, but you're not getting that restorative sleep that your brain needs. Screen time. So screen time is looking at a computer, looking at your TV, looking at your phone. They emit blue light. Why is blue light important? Blue light stimulates your brain. It stimulates dopamine. If your dopamine is stimulated, dopamine is your motivation neurotransmitter. So the last thing you want to do before you go to bed is get motivated. That is going to stimulate your body. That means it turns down GABA, which calms down your body. So try to be off your screens about 2 hours before you plan to go to bed. Like Dr. Luke said, reading is great for that. And don't read on a Kindle. Kindle's okay, iPhone or a tablet is bad because it's too much light. How about this? Read a book. Read a book in a dim room. I know sometimes that's hard. Sometimes getting a reading light, so the light's just here, not out here. And if you do have to get that reading light, use a blue light or a green light, not like a bright white light. Your environment, your bed, your pillow, the room temperature. Anybody know what the best sleeping temperature is?
68.
Between 65 and 68 degrees. That is the best temperature. Why? Because making your body cold helps you sleep. That's why cold showers, cold plunges, making your body cold. Why? Because it stimulates parasympathetic nervous system. So crank your AC down. Or if you live here in Ohio, open up your windows because it's like 20 degrees right now in March, which is horrible. But make your bedroom cooler at night. Having the right pillow. What's the right pillow? I don't know, we're all different. What's the right bed? I don't know, we're all different. General rule of thumb, back sleepers need firmer beds, side sleepers need softer beds. If you're sleeping on your side, your pillow shouldn't be too thick so it makes your head do this. It shouldn't be too skinny so it makes your head do this. You want kind of have a neutral spine. And if you're back sleeper predominantly, you want to have a cutout for your head so your neck's not flexed forwards, because that stretches your spine, that stretches your vagus nerve, and reduces your curve, so you have less shock absorption, and you're more prone to having neck pain and headaches if you have a straight cervical curve, and we see that a lot. Blackout shades are helpful for some people. Some people need to wear a face mask. Some people need to use weighted sheets. Some people need to use grounding sheets. Grounding sheets are new to a lot of people. I've been aware of them for a long, long time. If you can't, so will a grounding sheet work for me? I don't know, try it. Buy it off Amazon. If it doesn't work, return it. Like everybody else does to Amazon. Or go outside and walk around barefoot. We have a positive electromagnetic charge to us. Why? Because we wear clothes, we wear shoes, we walk around. All these things have a positive static electricity charge. The ground is negative. It pulls those things out of your body. Water is also negatively charged. Take a relaxing bath before bed and it actually changes the electromagnetic frequency of your body. Sand is great. Man, I feel so relaxed when I'm at the ocean because you're grounding yourself the whole time you're on the beach and you're getting in the ocean. That's very grounding. If you have a swimming pool, go into the swimming pool and just hang out. You get all that stimulation to your body and it's very calming. So for some people, that's very helpful as well. Some people have nutritional deficiencies, which we can measure through testing. Some people, their medication causes them to have sleep disorders. Some people, supplements cause them to have sleep disorders. And some people have medical conditions why they can't fall asleep. Now this is you can't stay asleep. So those are problems people have. This is you can't stay asleep. So there's two problems. Can't fall asleep, can't stay asleep. You have sleep apnea, we talked about that. So something is impacting your airway which causes you to not breathe. If you are not breathing, that's called hypoxia. Your brain needs oxygen to function. If you don't have that, it increases your risk for all-cause mortality, which means you're going to die statistically sooner than everybody else based on, for no reason at all, besides the fact that you can't breathe. If you have sleep apnea, increased risk of cancer. If you have sleep apnea, increased risk of impotency, of infertility, of all kinds of things that you wouldn't imagine just because you have sleep apnea. Some signs of sleep apnea is you snore no matter what position you're in, or you're choking. Sometimes people will choke. Some people have a lot of congestion. Sometimes people will just have apnea or a sleeping problem. They snore in the fall or the spring. Not that big of a deal, but if it's a year-round thing, it's something you really need to get checked out. And a lot of people have sleep apnea that don't know it. If you think you do, you can get apps for your phone that will record you sleeping, and they might tell you that you had X amount of times where you didn't breathe or you snored and then you didn't for long periods of time. So those are just some easy things you can do at home that don't really cost anything before you go get a sleep study done. Asthma or allergies, if you have underlying breathing problems, that can cause you to not be able to sleep well. If you're in pain, tossing and turning, that's gonna cause you to not be able to sleep well. If you sneeze at night, God bless you, that can cause you to have sleeping problems because you have allergies. Medications, stress. We've all woken up. Okay, my brain's turned on. Now I'm thinking about my calendar. Now I'm thinking about all these things. That's a tough one because sometimes that's just what it is sometimes. And that happens to me every once in a while. Sometimes I'm like, well, it's close enough to 5 o'clock. I might as well just get up. Or maybe you should go drink some juice. Or maybe you should do some meditative type things. I also believe as a Christian that sometimes the Holy Spirit wakes you up to pray for people. Last night I woke up at 1:30 and I don't ever wake up at 1:30. I'm like, all right, what do I need to pray for? So I just kind of going through my Rolodex of patients and friends and people that need prayer, and I just prayed until I fell back asleep again. That's awesome. So when I wake up in the night, I pray for people. I think you guys should too. Mental health disorders. Some mental health disorders, you're going to be prone to having sleeping problems, specifically schizophrenia and bipolar. You just have out-of-balance brain chemistry. So if you have mental health problems, if you have hypoglycemia, your mental health will never improve, ever. If you have ADHD and ADD, your mental health will never improve because your body, your brain does not have the resources it needs to function properly. It's so important and it's so overlooked in our medical community. Because if doctors just look at glucose, oh, you're at 80, that's subclinical hypoglycemia. They want to see clinical hypoglycemia like in the 50s, like you can die if it's that low. But if your glucose levels are under 80 and your insulin's under 4, you have hypoglycemia. Your doctor should then run a glucose tolerance test on you, and they typically don't do that. Women, you may have had that done when you were pregnant for gestational diabetes, but I find subclinical hypothyroid all the time. And just having people eat a snack before bed changes so much of their life. I had one patient, she was having infertility problems and she wasn't sleeping. Your ovaries can't make hormones if you don't sleep. There's no medication that's going to fix that. Eat snack before bed. In 3 months, she got pregnant. Is it because she ate snack before bed? I don't know. She was infertile for 3 years. She started eating the snack before bed when she got pregnant. Maybe there's something to do with this whole hypoglycemia and sleep and hormones. Hot flashes, don't have those. They suck. That's hormone imbalance. Commonly, it's estrogen, too much estrogen, which also is stimulatory, so that can cause you to have sleep. Hypoglycemia, again, that's low blood sugar. Your organ systems, interestingly, the Chinese folks, people who have been doing Chinese medicine for thousands of years, they have a chart called the Horary chart, Horarry. And they, I don't know how they developed this because they're very observant, is they were able to determine certain organ systems receive chi or energy throughout the day and night. And if you wake up consistently at a certain time of night, that means that organ has stress. So sometimes if people wake up like clockwork at 3 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock, like 10 to 11 is gallbladder, 1 to 3 is liver, 3 to 4 is lung, 5 to 6 is large intestine. If we support and fix that mechanism, their body stops sending all the stimulatory energy to their organ system and they can sleep too. That's not always the case, but that's nowhere on anybody's radar unless you go see an acupuncturist or a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, and they make you some herbs for that too. So that's something that we can look for as well. So just look up the Horary chart and see what elements are associated with that, and if that's you, start working on those things. It might really make a big difference for you. Restless leg syndrome. That's when your legs are. So restless leg syndrome is not the little muscle spasms and fasciculations. That's usually electrolyte imbalance where your muscles are kind of. Restless leg syndrome is that your legs literally are uncontrollably moving. What is that from? Lack of dopamine. What does lack of dopamine turn into? Parkinson's. Uncontrolled restless legs turned into Parkinson's almost always. This is like one of those can't smell, brain decline, restless legs, Parkinson's. So what do? You take supplements that support dopamine and restless legs go away, or you have a significant MTHFR gene mutation and you probably have high homocysteine levels. And then you take methyl B vitamins and NAC, N-acetylcysteine, and that corrects that problem. You have the poor environment in your room. Your room is warm, your pillow's not the right pillow, your bed's not the right bed, your partner's not the right sleeping partner. Maybe you need to be in separate beds. Maybe you need to wear earplugs or a face mask. Maybe you need white noise. Maybe you need brown noise. Maybe you need green noise. Maybe you need blue noise. There's all kinds of colors of noise that emit different frequencies. Maybe your router's in your room and it's producing too much EMF, and that's keeping you awake too. EMF is very stimulatory. So your router in your house needs to be as far away from where everyone works and lives, and maybe even put a Faraday cage on it too. Some people can't sleep because of EMF. Acid reflux, that's eating too late at night, causes that acid reflux because your stomach's full. It's just a simple gravity thing. Acid goes up because your body's producing stomach acid to break it down. Most Americans, almost all Americans, we eat the wrong way. Breakfast should be our biggest meal, not full of sugar. Lunch should be a little bit smaller, and dinner should be the smallest meal. We have it backwards. We eat crappy sugary breakfasts, we eat crappy sugary lunches, and a decent dinner. It's usually too late at night, and then we go to bed. So we eat the most amount of calories before bed, and then we have no time to burn them off, and then we go right to bed. Where most cultures eat big breakfasts, smaller lunches, smaller dinners. So try to eat bigger lunch, smaller dinners, and try to eat more protein. Most people do not get enough protein in. If you don't get enough protein, your body doesn't have the resources or the amino acids to recover. The minimum amount of protein you should eat in a day is, anybody know? Half your body weight in grams of protein. That's the minimum amount. So I'm about 190. So that's like what, 95 grams of protein? How much is 95 grams of protein? It's a pretty fair amount. I struggle to get that in sometimes. Back in college when I played rugby, I had to get like 200 grams of protein in a day, and that was really hard because if I didn't, I'd lose weight because we ran a lot. So, and most older people don't get enough protein in, which is one of the reasons why they have a weakened immune system and their brain degenerates faster, because they don't have the resources to recover to make new brain chemistry. Food sensitivities can also cause sleeping problems, and then just being ill in general can also cause you to have problems staying asleep. So what happens when you don't get enough sleep? You have reduced sex hormones. Why? Because your sex glands get small. They literally shrink in size. It increases your cortisol levels. Your cortisol is that fight or flight mechanism. Cortisol wakes you up. The higher your cortisol, the lower your melatonin. So when your cortisol is high, your body cannot make melatonin at the same time. And the same nutrients that makes cortisol makes your sex hormones, and your cortisol is he or she trumps sex hormones, because your body wants to keep you alive, not make sex hormones. So think of cortisol as like the ringleader of all your hormones, and it needs to be low unless you're running from bear. The rest of the time it needs to be normal. Just when you're in a stressful situation, it needs to be high, and that's appropriate. But the problem is we're hanging out in this room talking right now, and people's cortisol is high for no reason. That's a problem. It increased the risk of all mortality. They deprived people of sleep for 1 week, and everybody developed hypertension. That's high blood pressure. For 1 week, they let them sleep 3 hours a night. That quickly, they developed high blood pressure. They all started sleeping, and their high blood pressure went away. Sleep impacts your blood flow, your vascular system, because your body doesn't have time to recover from what you did to it that day. That's why you can't catch up on sleep. Some people say you can. I disagree. You can't catch up on sleep. You can't fix things that are broken. Cardiac events. As I was doing research for this talk, I came across this. Daylight savings time. 24% increase risk worldwide of people who go to the hospital with heart attacks when we spring forwards and lose an hour of sleep. When we gain an hour of sleep, 21% reduced heart attacks worldwide when we gain an hour of sleep. That's statistically significant. Just 1 hour. And this isn't like in Ohio, this is in the world. Of the 70 countries that follow daylight savings time, 24% people have heart attacks, have to go to the hospital. And when we gain an hour of sleep, it reduces by 21%. That's profound. So sleeping impacts your cardiovascular system. Obesity increases inflammation in your body and in your brain. If your brain is inflamed, your frontal lobe can't work. Your amygdala takes over. It impairs your thinking. Sometimes you just feel dumb and you're like, why can I not think? It's because you didn't wash the inflammation out of your brain. Because your cortisol was being driven all night long. So yeah, that's a thing. When you don't sleep, you have an increased risk of car accidents. You have mistakes at work. You have missed appointments. You have micro sleeps. What's a micro sleep? When you close your eyes for more than just a blink. What's a blink? 1/10 of a second. I don't know how fast a blink is, but it's when you have a long blink. That's called a micro sleep. And when you're sleep deprived, you have micro sleeps. So if you're going 70 miles an hour and you blink for 2 seconds, you traveled a long distance. So that's why there's increased risk of car accidents. It increases your risk of type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is your fault. That means you've aggravated your pancreas for so long, it cannot produce enough insulin to keep up with the glucose that you consumed. Type 1 is not your fault. You're typically born with it, or if you get it as an adult, it's because a virus attacked your pancreas. Those patients we can almost always fix. Type 1s, we can just help support that mechanism. And people have mental health challenge, and it will actually develop mental health problems if you don't sleep. So if you know anybody who has mental health problems, what do they want to do? They want to sleep. Why? So their brain can repair itself. Especially if you're depressed, you want to sleep. 1, because you don't have to deal with your reality of what you're depressed about. But 2, it's because your brain's trying to recover. Your amygdala is yelling louder than your frontal lobe. So you want to sleep to help reset that mechanism. and they don't even know why. I'm just tired because I'm tired, because your brain needs to rest, and you need to stop eating inflammatory foods. So what do people, so clinical presentation, a lot of times it's what us doctors say is a clinical presentation. How does the patient present itself? So some common symptoms that you may not know about would be daytime sleepiness, fatigue, irritability, trouble focusing and thinking and remembering things, slow reaction time. That's a common one. Headaches, microsleep, nystagmus. Nystagmus is when your eyes, it's an uncontrolled eye movement. So a lot of times doctors will have you do this and follow their finger around. They're looking to see if your eyes bounce forward or backwards, up and down. That tells us you have problems in different parts of your brain based on where you have side beat or upbeat nystagmus or convergent nystagmus. That's a problem with your brainstem, which can be impacted when you don't sleep. We've obviously talked about the sex hormone deficiencies, adrenal imbalances, dyspraxia, so you can't find words. Ptosis is when your eyes kind of droop. Hand tremors. Anybody got a hand tremor? Hand tremors that's not diagnosed a lot of times because there's no blood test for that. It's because sometimes people don't sleep. Visual or tactile hallucinations, impaired judgment, impulsivity, reckless behavior. You have poor working memory because you don't sleep. Your brain doesn't have time to sort out your memories and stick it in the hippocampus for long-term memory, so it's just gone. Like, I have no idea what I did yesterday. It's because you didn't sleep, so you couldn't retain that memory. You couldn't put it in this box over here because you missed that window to do that. That's why you can't get sleep back. And people with mental health problems typically sleep poorly. So what can we do about it? Is it just a pill for a problem? Maybe. I hate to do that because a lot of times in the functional medicine room, we kind of call that green medicine. Well, I'm just going to take red yeast rice instead of cholesterol statin medication. Well, it's still a pill for a problem. Why do you have the problem? Now, to help patients symptomatically, I might say, hey, take a melatonin, take some passion flower, drink some chamomile tea, do this for now to give you some symptomatic relief. But we have to drill down to figure out what's the root cause of the problem. So taking a pill for a problem for a short time is fine, but taking a pill for a problem, it never works. It works for about 2 or 3 months and then it stops working. Why? Because it wasn't the mechanism of why you had the problem to begin with. It was just a pill for a problem. So what are pills for problems? If you're deficient in D3, K2, magnesium, calcium, taurine, 5-HTP, GABA, melatonin, those will cause you to have sleep problems. If you're insulin resistant, that will deplete B1, which impacts your phrenic nerve. Your phrenic nerve is what controls your diaphragm. If you don't have proper diaphragmatic movement, you don't sleep as well. You can't get those deep rests in, which means you're hypoxic, which means you're not getting oxygen to your brain, which means your brain's inflamed. Circadian dysrhythmia. It's a fancy way of saying your circadian rhythm is out of balance. It's because of stress or blood sugar regulations. Neurotransmitter imbalance. So you have too much stimulatory, not enough inhibitory. We have to have that right symphony in the right part of our brain at the right time for our brain to work properly. It's not just a quantity, it's a function. You have too much sympathetic nervous system versus parasympathetic nervous system. There's the autonomic nervous system that Dr. Luke talked about. Chiropractic care can help that. Sympathetic nerve can help that. So you have a gut-brain connection and a brain-gut direction. We talked about BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. There's also something called LPS, lipopolysaccharides. After a traumatic brain injury, heart attack, stroke, car accident, something like that, when your brain gets very inflamed, it sends cytokines, those are inflammatory markers, down your vagus nerve to your gut. Within 5 minutes, you have profound leaky gut after a traumatic brain injury. 5 minutes, that's crazy that it happens that quick. What does that mean? Now when you have constipation or diarrhea or gut problems, your brain will not work right. There's that whole brain-gut connection. Some people can't sleep because we gotta fix their gut. How do you know you have gut problems? You should poop every time you eat. You eat 3 meals a day, you poop 3 times a day. You eat 1 meal a day, you poop once a day. So that's a problem, and that will impact your sleep. If you get bloated or have acid reflux, those are all gut problems that can impact your brain and your ability to sleep. Food sensitivities. So people have food sensitivity. It's not an allergy, it's a sensitivity. So when you have GERD, oftentimes it's because your body is making stomach acid when it should not, due to a sensitivity, or you have H. pylori. So those are tests we can run. EMF causes your body to produce less melatonin. That's what comes from your routers. That causes a positive electromagnetic frequency in our body, which is why we need to ground or use grounding sheets. And vitamin G. I think I read that or made it up. I don't know if I'm that smart. I probably read it somewhere. That's your grounding sheets, vitamin G. How do you ground? Walk outside barefoot. Get in some water. Buy a grounding mat to stay on. Buy grounding sheets for your bed. You plug it into the round hole on your receptacle in your wall, and see if it helps you. I had one patient. She's like, when I sleep at my house, I don't dream. When I sleep at my boyfriend's house, I dream every single night. I'm like, what's better, to dream or not dream? She's like, I don't know. She's like, probably dreaming. I'm like, you're probably right. Buy some grounding sheets for your house. Because when you don't dream, you're not getting that sound restorative sleep. We should dream and we should remember our dreams. Sometimes when people don't remember their dreams, they're deficient in vitamin B6. So giving people high doses of vitamin B6 can help people dream, because we're supposed to dream. We might not always remember, but we're supposed to dream. So you're not getting to that deep REM sleep, because that's when dreaming takes place, in that deep REM. So you're not even getting to that fourth stage of sleep. That's kind of what the drugs do, and the alcohol and the marijuana is it doesn't like it in that deep sleep. You skip. You go through the top two phases, then you go to the top two phases, then you go to the top two phases. You miss the restorative ones at the bottom from the example from earlier. So what are some tests to do? So get some sleep apnea testing. You can go to a sleep center to have that done, or you can do it at home. So your doctor can help you figure out what the easiest thing to do is. But there's all kinds of apps that are probably free. Do I have sleep apnea app? I don't know, type it in to Google and figure it out. It's pretty simple. And it's record you sleeping. You can get an EEG. That's kind of awkward, but that's what they do with the sleep apnea. They stick it all over your head and see what happens when you sleep. You can do overnight oximetry. That measures your oxygen output all night long. You can get an actigraph, which is kind of a smartwatch, and that measures your heart rate variability and different pulse oximeter and different things as you sleep at night. They have some sleep scales. So the Epworthy Sleepiness Scale and the Sleep Quality Scale, Montreal Cognitive Assessment Form, we call it the MOCA. So that's what if you are concerned about cognitive impairment, download a MOCA and take it at any age. And then next year, do it again. And then next year, do it again. Your scores should be the same. And if they're not, your brain is degenerating. And your brain doesn't go from here to here, degeneration. It goes here. It's a slow downhill slide. We just chalk it up to, I'm getting older. That's normal. It's not normal. It's common, but not normal. There are really sharp older people that still work and do things at a really high level. Why? Because they use their brain, they exercise, they sleep well, they take vitamins, they do all the things that they've always done their whole lives. They don't just happen to be that way. Some of it's genetic, but almost all of it's lifestyle. So get a MOCA, and if you're in your 30s and 40s, get a MOCA for your parents. Hey, do me a favor, just take this, see what your score is. It doesn't matter what it is. It should be the same next year. And if it's not, it's a problem. If it's low now, then they come see me, because we need to fix this now. Because what you're doing this year of your life is setting you up for success or failure for your brain in 10 years. It's really important. You can do some traditional lab work. You can do some cortisol saliva testing. You can do a Dutch test, which is a sex hormone test. And you can also do food sensitivity testing. So this is just a basic questionnaire of kind of how well do you sleep. It's 0, 1, or 2. So it's very simple. You can do this, and it will tell you if you have good sleep or poor sleep. This is for kids. Kids who don't sleep do worse academically. I know California is one of the few states that actually, they start their school days much later in the day because they understand the quality of their students. They need sleep. High school students shouldn't be at school at 8 a.m. They should actually start school around 9. Little kids need to start school around 10. Now, that's super inconvenient for me as a parent, but those kids need those good sleeping hours for their brain to develop appropriately. Other countries have completely different school schedules than we do. It's not out of convenience for us, it's what's best for the students. But we don't think that way as Americans. It's what's gonna make us the most money. And it hurts our kids, unfortunately. Glucose tolerance testing. So what they do is they check your blood sugar, then they give you a gross drink that has anywhere from 50 to 75 grams of sugar, and then check your blood sugar 2 hours later, and it should not rise over 140. So if it rises over 140, that means you have an inability to process glucose properly. This means you're susceptible to having hypoglycemia or you're pre-diabetic. So it kind of hits both ends of the spectrum. And we talked about what is normal fasting. So you can see the laboratory levels are from 70 to 99. Functionally, it's 80 to 95. So if your blood sugar is 70, you almost certainly have hypoglycemia. I've had very few patients that have low blood sugar levels that are normal still. They're functionally low, but they're allopathically normal, that don't have hypoglycemia. That means they have awesome adrenal function, which most adults don't because we're stressed out. Homeostatic model, asymmetry of insulin resistance. This is a quick little equation you can do. There's a website, just type in HOMA score for glucose, type in insulin times your glucose. It does this measurement for you and it gives you an insulin resistance score. The more insulin resistant you are, the worse your sleep's going to be. People who are diabetic tend to sleep worse. And they also tend to wake up at night to go pee, because insulin resistance impacts your bladder and it makes you cannot void your bladder properly or completely, because the receptor sites in your brain that receive that to urinate are inflamed, so you have to go pee every 2 or 3 hours, which if you're older, that's horrible. So insulin resistance is a big cause of patients waking up a lot, or hypoglycemia. This is a cortisol saliva test. This is actually the test that we use through diagnostic. So the green is the reference range. Your cortisol should be high in the morning. Why? Because cortisol wakes you up. And it should be low at night, because melatonin is high at night and low in the morning. So as cortisol goes up, melatonin goes down. So this poor person here wakes up really tired, and then they're super stressed out at work, and then they get really tired, and they get stressed out at night and can't fall asleep. This person's stressed out all day long. They wake up in fight or flight. They probably feel okay here, and they have no ability to go to sleep at night. This is when nothing works. When your cortisol high, melatonin doesn't work, drugs don't work, alcohol just knocks you out, drug just knock you out, but you don't actually sleep, because your cortisol is still high even though you're sleeping. And now you're in fight or flight when you're sleeping. And now you probably have hypoglycemia when you're sleeping. And you don't breathe, and you can't make hormones. Can you see the vicious cycle? There's a lot of repetitive things that I've talked about. And this person has cortisol insufficiency. So they are in adrenal fatigue or exhaustion. This patient needs drugs. This patient needs cortisone cream to actually give them cortisol, because they're exhausted all day long. So that just means they've been in fight or flight for so long, their adrenal glands gave up. It's almost like type 2 diabetes when your pancreas gives up. This person's adrenal glands can't produce cortisol. So this inexpensive test tells us a lot about your circadian rhythm and tells us what time of the day and the night that maybe you need to eat. Maybe we need to give you supplements to help boost your cortisol. Maybe we need to give you supplements to help reduce your cortisol. So this is a very valuable test for me as a doctor. This is a Dutch hormone test. This is through dried urine. This really tells us about your stress hormone, your sex hormones, and it gives us ratios and breakdowns. It tells us about your estrogen metabolites, your DHEA, your pregnenolone, and your ability to detox out. Hormones are fine, but it's important you're able to detox them out, because too much hormones are bad. Not enough hormones are bad. You need them to be just right. You need Goldilocks hormones. You need to be just right. Me as a man, I need lots of testosterone and just a little bit of everything else. Women have to have the right symphony at the right time of the month. Even postmenopausal women, they still need a little bit of hormones for their bone health and for their brain health. So this is a test we can run on almost any age patient, and it's really helpful to know. And for older women, I'm looking to see if they can metabolize excess estrogen, because if they can't, they're more prone to getting estrogen-dominant cancers, like breast cancer, cervical cancer, vaginal cancer, things like that. Men who have estrogen dominance typically have high estrogen levels, and they get prostate cancer. That's our estrogen-dominant cancer, or breast cancer for men too. Excuse me. So what are we gonna do? Well, if you have hypoglycemia, you need to eat before bed. You should all get chiropractic care because who's taking care of your nervous system? Who's taking care of your spine? Don't get adjusted, don't have back pain. Yeah, but you have a spine. Just like you go to the dentist before you have teeth problems. Why? Because you don't want to go to the dentist when they're rotting out of your face. You want to go to the dentist before you have teeth problems. That's why you go to the chiropractor before you have spinal problems. Why? Because your nerves control everything in your body. If your nervous system doesn't work right, your body will eventually break down, and sometimes it's hard to fix if it can be fixed. Some people need sleep appliances. Dr. Luke mentioned his wife. His wife's a dentist. Some people need that sleep appliance to bring their jaw forwards, to move their tongue around. That's not what I do. But for some people, that's appropriate. It's an appropriate measure. Some people need to do breathing techniques. There's something called box breathing. There's different kinds of breathing techniques out there. Box breathing is simply breathing in a cadence of 4, like a box. Inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds. Inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds. Sometimes it's a cadence of 4, 5, 6, depending on how much you breathe. Because when you breathe, you're stimulating parasympathetic. You're getting out of that fight or flight mechanism. Meditate on whatever you want to meditate about. Christians call it praying. People who are not Christians call it meditating. Your environment needs to be right. It needs to be dark and cold. Sleep in a cave without EMF. White noise. Some people it helps. Some people it doesn't. Some people need to run a ceiling fan just to have some sort of background noise or they hear every little creak in their house. The full moon. Why is the full moon important when it comes to sleep? If you sleep poorly 1 week out of the month consistently, you have parasites. We all have parasites. Most of them are not a problem. If they are a problem, parasites procreate and party around the full moon. So if you or your children, your kids will misbehave more, have more problems in school, or you'll argue more with them, or you having those things around the plus or minus a couple days before the full moon and after full moon, you kill the parasites, those problems go away. If you don't have parasites, then don't worry about it. Read. Reading is inhibitory. Reading calms you down. So read. Read a book. Grounding sheets or weighted blankets and weighted sheets are sometimes helpful for people, especially if you have sensory processing issues, especially kids who love to be hugged and like to touch people and hug you and touch you. Grounding blankets are really good, but you have to make sure that it's age appropriate. You don't want to put a heavy blanket on a 2-year-old kid; it could smother them. So I don't know what there's if you're this old, don't get one that's higher than this weight. It's important you look that up. So you don't just want to assume that your kid can tolerate a weighted blanket. Maybe a comforter, because if they're not strong enough to push themselves up, that could hurt them. But most adults will be fine with a weighted blanket, and see if you like it. The only problem with weighted blankets is sometimes you get hot with them. Grounding sheets, you typically will lay on them, almost like a fitted sheet, or you can get little mats to put underneath your sheets. But ideally, you want to have your skin touching, your bare skin touching the grounding sheets for it to work the best, because your skin needs to ground you. You don't ground well through your clothes. Take a warm bath or shower at night, because that calms you down. Take a cold shower in the morning. Improve your sympathetic to parasympathetic balance. Reduce your EMS, wear earplugs or a mask. Journal. Maybe write some stuff down. Sometimes it's helpful to write down your worries of the day. People make their to-do lists, but do you make your I got these things done list? Most people don't, because sometimes it helps you remember those things. And just kind of like going through your day, kind of retrospective looking at your day. What was good, what was bad, what can I do better, what can I do different? Most Americans are typically not introspective at all. I'm not at all. I think most people are like me when it comes to that. Pray. I think we all need to pray more. Limit caffeine, don't have caffeine at all maybe, or not too late at night. Especially if you're sensitive to caffeine, just probably no caffeine at all. Limit your screen time. Supplements, which ones? I don't want to give you a pill for a problem, so we'll do some testing to figure it out. And obviously, some people just have to have medications to sleep. It's just what it is. Hopefully you're not that person, but if you are, the goal would be to reduce them and hopefully to help you taper off of them. But that would be up to your doctor who prescribes that to you. These are the unrefuted best doctors in the world. They run the show. God, the God who created the heavens and the earth. Sunshine, diet, exercise, sleep, water, air. Those are pretty much all free too. So if you're not getting these, you're not going to be healthy. So in all of our care plans, we try to incorporate all of these things. You need to have God, whether it's Jesus or a higher power, doesn't matter. God is the high power. He is the creator of the heavens and the earth. I'll talk more about that later if you don't agree. Sunshine, you need to get your skin and your eyeballs in front of the sun. It does so many beneficial things to your body. You can't get that from taking a vitamin D3 supplement. You got to get an anti-inflammatory diet. Inflammation drives disease. Inflammation drives inability to sleep. What's inflammatory? Most of what we eat, because it's convenient food. The most inflammatory foods we eat: gluten, dairy, processed sugars, trans fats, food coloring, bad oils, corn, sugar. It's all GMO, genetically modified, hybridized, bad for you. Eat paleo, eat keto, eat what God made the way God made it, duh. Do as much of that as you can, you'll be healthier. Exercise is so important for your brain. Just like eating food. Sometimes you need to exercise for your brain, not for your stomach. So if you're hypoglycemic, I'm not hungry, Dr. Boynton. I understand you're not hungry, but your brain is. Your belly's not, but your brain is. That's why you eat every couple hours. Same thing holds true at night. You gotta eat for your brain. You gotta exercise for your brain too. If you don't exercise, your body can't make BDNF. If you don't make BDNF, you can't make, it's hard to make new neural pathways. You can't learn things very well. Sleep is crucial. It's when your brain it recovers. You don't sleep, you're in deficit all the time. Everything sucks when you can't sleep. And if that's you, you understand that way more than I do. You have to drink clean filtered water. Plastic water bottles have so many, it's kind of been in the news lately about all these microplastics. I don't know if you guys have seen it at all, but drinking out of those crinkly plastic bottles of water just putting tons of plastic into our bodies, which are endocrine disruptors, which increase the risk of cancers. That's why the Dutch test is important to know if you have that going on. And air, you gotta have an air filter. Indoor air quality is way worse than outdoor air quality. So either get a whole house filter for your living room. If you can't afford that, buy the best air filters you can stick in your furnace. But ideally, everybody has a small air filter in their rooms, a HEPA filter, and you have a big one in your living area. And open up your house as much as you can based on allergies and other things, because you're just breathing recycled air, especially if you're in the north, you're just breathing recycled, dirty air all day long. You gotta get that fresh air and let your house burp. That's important to do as well. So what supplements work best for me? Well, are you asking the right question? It's not what supplements work best for me, it's why do you have the problem? So if you have a stress problem, call them Essentials Plus, because these things help to inhibit your neurotransmitters, because GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, and L-theanine helps to get out excitatory neurotransmitters. So that's the mechanism behind why this one works. If you're restless and you can't fall asleep, this is a very calming formulation. So if you're just tossing and turning, can't calm everything down, maybe your body even hurts you. This has some anti-inflammatory things here, and it has inhibitory or sedentary herbs to help calm things down. If you can't calm your brain down, or you have restless legs or muscle spasm stuff, you need magnesium. And research tells us that magnesium threonate can cross through the blood-brain barrier, which helps to calm your brain down. So magnesium threonate is good if your body's restless, or you just can't turn your brain off. Or some liposomal melatonin is good too. So liposomal means it's mixed with fat, so it helps to absorb into your body faster. So remember I said B6, can't remember your dreams. Passion flower is a sedative herb. GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, and your pineal gland makes melatonin. This is more pill for a problem, but if you just need to sleep, you need to sleep. So this is kind of a good catch-all for people. So if you have hypoglycemia, those are the best supplements for you. Eat food. And just figure out what you need to eat. Like I said, some hummus, an avocado, a hard-boiled egg, a handful of nuts, some beef jerky, celery and peanut butter, whatever. Figure it out. Some people can eat absolutely anything, and some people need to eat Okay, I figured out I have to have 10 grams of protein, or I have to have X amount of fiber, or X amount of fat. I don't know. Some people can eat potato chips or popcorn. Everybody's different. Everyone has to have a different need. So try to figure it out. I think nuts and seeds are easy. You handle nuts and seeds, you eat it, you brush your teeth, you go to bed. Something as simple as that. Or beef jerky, like 2 bites of beef jerky. Something that's easy, you don't have to prepare. You open it and eat it, kind of thing. Because when you're ready to go to bed, you're ready to go to bed. And it's not, okay, I'm ready to go to bed, and I have to go make something. That's not gonna happen. So something that's easy that you can leave in your room, like nuts and seeds. You eat a handful of nuts and seeds. Hopefully you brush your teeth at night. And don't use mouthwash, because mouthwash messes up your endothelial system, which increases your blood pressure. So don't use mouthwash every day because it's bad for you. And as a special thanks, we're going to give you guys a 15% discount on all those supplements for the month of April. As a special thanks. So if we're not Facebook friends, be friends with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. So how do you get to it? So that's our website. You then just go to the shop button. You'll see the sleep button, and all those supplements will be there. And if you've tried similar things like that, and nothing seems to work for you, you're going to sit down and have a consultation with myself or Dr. Luke to see if functional medicine is the best route for you, or maybe mainstream medicine is the best route for you, or you've probably tried mainstream medicine already. You might drink NyQuil just to sleep, or take Benadryl just to sleep. Benadryl, you do not get into the 4 stages of sleep; it just knocks you out. So some people take Benadryl at night, your eyes are just closed. You have to get quality sleep for your brain to work right. And those are things that Dr. Luke and myself can really help you with too. So we can set up a consultation with that, where you just talk to us for a half hour, or set up an exam. And that's our office. And that is all I got. Does anybody have any questions before I let you go? Or is these all these things you guys have heard of before? None of these things you've heard of before? Refresher.
The waking up to go to the restroom, is it always related to your blood sugar?
Not necessarily, no. As long as you can fall back asleep, it's fine. But if you have type 2 diabetes, almost always, yeah. Women can have different bladder problems due to carrying multiple children, weak pelvic floor, things like that, issues with incontinence, that would be different. But oftentimes with older people, and waking up frequently, yeah, it's a blood sugar, it's insulin resistance problem. So by supporting blood sugar better, they'll be able to sleep for a longer period of time without waking up.
Why was mouthwash bad again?
Mouthwash kills the bacteria in your mouth that make nitric oxide. If you're low in nitric oxide, it impacts something called the glycocalyx. Just a fun word to say.
Okay.
What does that do? That shuttles blood through your blood vessels. So if you don't have enough endothelial cells, you can't push blood through your system more. So that increases your blood pressure, because you can't shuttle the blood through your blood vessels as well. So nitric oxide synthesis starts in your mouth. Now, if you have a cold sore or a mouth sore, use mouthwash, it's fine.
Yeah.
But to use it every single day or multiple times a day, every day, they did a research study. They gave people mouthwash twice a day for 30 days, and they all developed hypertension. And then they stopped, and their hypertension went away. Just like they depleted people of sleep for 5 days, and they all developed hypertension too. Now, it wasn't uncontrollable, but they went from normal to high. They slept, and it went back on normal again. Little things make a big difference. And little things over time is when people turn to functional medicine, because we're diving deep to the root cause, not symptom for a pill. Sometimes you need that. But that causes so much other collateral damage that we don't even know about. And when you're on multiple medications, who knows what it's doing to you? Because when they do research for medication, it's great, it's thorough, but it's one medication. Most adults who take medications are not on one. They're on multiple medications. Show me the research study on a patient on multiple medications, and there is 0, because you can't do research because there's 2 variables. Most adults who take medication are on multiple, so we call that polypharmacy. There's no research study. So hanging your head on research is not valid when the patient doesn't qualify for the research study, because they're on 2 medications. So that's just logic. You're a functional medicine doctor thinking logically. It's crazy talk. Anybody else? All right, if you have more questions, want to talk to me individually, great. If not, have a safe drive home. and we'll do this next month on Talk on Something.